Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled The Key to Building Strong Assemblies, why Yahuwah is leading us to grow this ministry by focusing on spiritual value and quality. The podcast objectives are analyze the primary requirements for knowledge, reveal why quality is superior to quantity, reveal why many who were called will never be saved, and reveal the order of phase 2. Time and chance happens to us all. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 400 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, I provided a high-level summary of the first phase in this exposition of lawlessness, and I revealed the prime objective of phase 2. That is, to build a body of wisdom, knowledge, and truth upon the foundation of faith, obedience, virtue, and the fear of Elohim you established in phase 1. And so I'll say it again. You will not succeed this phase if you have not unlocked the powers of these 4 degrees of holiness. For this is the only way you can unlock the girdle of truth. And you will never be a true contender for the seal of Elohim if you have not been girded with truth. Facts. Therefore, I am asking you again to A, listen to all the podcasts from phase 1 as you are led by the Spirit, and B, ensure you are walking in the fear of Elohim. For you will never be a true contender for the seal of Elohim if you are not walking in the fear of Elohim. Facts again. Not only this, but you must always remember that the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life is progressive. Ergo, everything you need to succeed, any level or interval in your quest, is found within all the levels and intervals preceding it. Ergo, if you try to shortcut the process, to wit, if you try to obtain knowledge without walking in obedience, faith, virtue, and the fear of Elohim, the scriptures are quite clear. You are a thief and a robber. For look, listen, it has been written, enter in through the straight gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter in through it, because narrow is the gate and hard pressed is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Look again, my friends, and listen. Listen, he who does not enter through the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up by another way, that one is a thief and a robber. Yahushua therefore said to them again, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. Whoever enters through me, he shall be saved. Now, in line with these passages, I do not think it is strange or unfitting for me to encourage you to follow the linear model of holiness, which you see to the left. Likewise, I admonish you to remember what Isaiah had to say about this way. Isaiah 35:8 is revealing, and there shall be a highway and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean does not pass over it, but it is for those who follow the path, and no fools wander on it. Not only this, but in John 14:6, Yahushua Messiah is declaring, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, in case you haven't noticed, all the degrees within the pinnacle of holiness are the spiritual attributes of Yahushua Messiah, which is why they result in perfection. For he, Yahushua Messiah, is the perfect man. This is why Yahuwah called me to utilize the pinnacle of holiness to illustrate the way of holiness, line upon line and precept upon precept. It is to ensure that you are not ignorant concerning the way. Remember, anyone who is following some other way is a thief and a robber. Why? It's because they are not entering through the door. And if they don't enter through the door, they are outside of the way. Not only this, but by refusing to enter through the door, they are resisting the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah. Here's why this is so very dangerous, specifically at this interval between the fear of Elohim and knowledge. You will never receive the knowledge of Elohim if you resist the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah. Plainly speaking, you will never ascend to the level of knowledge if you resist the linear model of holiness. For the pinnacle of holiness is the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah, and we were commanded to follow his standard. My dear friends, you must believe me. This is the way. And if you follow it, you will be led into all truth. And if you follow the truth, then you will obtain the seal of Elohim, and you will have everlasting life. Now, should you lean to the contrary, vis-a-vis, if you believe the set apart spirit of Elohim will lead you into all truth, knowledge, and wisdom, while you operate in prejudice, contempt, disobedience, and doubt, let me tell you something. You are following a broken path that is anti-Mashiach and anti-truth. And if you are intent on following this broken path, hear me carefully as I say, you will never be sealed. You will never be saved. And this ministry is not for you, for you will never stay. Now, it may be unorthodox for me to turn away those who are intent on pursuing knowledge outside of the divine order of Elohim. And yet, if you feel that way, let me tell you something. It's only because the majority within our nation are operating outside of his divine order. Here lies the inflection and the problem. To wit, you decrease your spiritual quality and value every time you operate outside the divine order of Elohim. And although there are many ministries that are willing to overlook the spiritual quality of their members for carnal reasons, Yahuwah has led me to take a different approach. Here is why. By focusing on the quantity of their members as opposed to spiritual quality, many leaders in this nation are endangering their flocks. We know this because the 80 degrees of lawlessness are infectious. Ergo, when you invite lawlessness into your assembly, the people are going to be infected. Trust me, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. For time and chance happens to us all. Spiritual quality, the quantity. Now, if you're wondering why I am so adamant about the spiritual quality of a predominantly virtual ministry, I'll tell you what I told you in the beginning. Yahuwah has called me to lead men and women out of mystery Babel, to wit, a physical exodus. Not only this, but Yahuwah has warned me many times of the danger of a spiritually mixed multitude. This is why he led me to transition from teaching you end times events to focusing on the spiritual quality you must obtain to survive these events. In the process, he has grown this ministry beyond the imagination of all the naysayers and doubters who try to discourage me from launching this work. By the mercies of Elohim, allow me to tell you what he has done. In less than 2 years, Yahuwah has created an engaged audience spanning 6 of the 7 continents in our world. By his goodwill, we are speaking to our brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah in the 4 corners of the earth. In doing so, our podcasts and videos have been viewed and downloaded more than 60,000 times. And 99% of our reach has been purely organic, vis-a-vis men and women we have never met in this life. Now, here again, this is what Yahuwah has done, and thus I am not sharing our growth metrics such that anyone should boast. It's simply a matter of fact. And the fact is, you, my friend, are amongst an international company that has spiritual quality and quantity. And we didn't take the low road to get here. Quite the contrary, we took the highway, i.e., the narrow way, i.e., the straight gate, i.e., the way of holiness. My dear friends, you know my work. I'm a watchman. And as a watchman, my remit is not to tell you what you want to hear. Quite the contrary. My remit is to tell you what you need to know. For this is the only way you and I can be saved. Remember, if the watchman does not warn the people of clear and present danger, Yahuwah will require their blood at the hand of the watchman. Ezekiel 3:17 through 19 is revealing, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel, and you shall hear a word from my mouth, and shall warn them from me. When I say to the wrong, you shall certainly die, and you have not warned him, nor spoken to warn the wrong from his wrong way, to save his life, that same wrong man shall die in his crookedness, and his blood I require at your hand. But if you have warned the wrong, and he does not turn from his wrong, nor from his wrong way, he shall die in his crookedness, and you have delivered your soul. Now, this, my friends, is why we have spent the past 13 months analyzing the 80 degrees of lawlessness. It is because these 80 degrees are the greatest threats to your attainment of the seal of Elohim and everlasting life. And thus, in the spirit of the watchman, I am compelled to warn the children of Elohim of the dangers of lawlessness and to show you how you can reign over every degree. Listen to me. This is what it means to make your calling and election sure. And seeing as we are in the last of the last days, I am determined to cry aloud and spare not. For look, listen, it has been written, cry aloud, do not spare. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Declare to my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. Therefore, I will not slack to warn you of the wages of sin and lawlessness, even if you don't want to hear it. My dear friends, I will call to mind the burning wrath and the fierce judgment of Elohim, even if you don't fear it. And I will do everything within my power to help you escape the terror that is coming. For every day we draw near it. Now, if that's not what you're looking for, believe me, you have other options. Let me tell you something. There are millions of pastors all over this world who will tell you what you want to hear, and they will attract more followers in one day than we will attract in 1 year. And thus, we conclude quantity is not a hard feat if you are willing to sacrifice quality. But know this, if you are willing to sacrifice quality, then you are willing to sacrifice everything. If you're not convinced, let me tell you something. Unlike most men, Yahuwah is not willing to sacrifice spiritual quality. This is why his messengers are removing all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness from the earth. It's because they lack spiritual quality, and this is the majority of man. And thus, we will keep our focus on spiritual quality as we seek out one from a city and two from a clan. And that, my friends, is what makes this ministry truly special and a true work of Elohim. For in a day and a time when truth has fallen in the street and our nation is being overrun by incompetent leaders, false prophets, and petty fools, Yahuwah is setting apart a remnant who are focused on spiritual quality. And he has united many of us in this virtual ministry. For unlike the many who are made for this world, we are qualifying ourselves for the world that is to come. The danger of a spiritually mixed multitude. Now, that is a high-level summary, revealing why Yahuwah has called me to focus on spiritual quality. It is because spiritual quality is the key to building strong assemblies, and only strong assemblies will survive in these last days. Here lies the inflection and the problem. To wit, the majority of the assemblies in this nation are not strong, which lends itself to the difficulty involved in surviving these last days. Consider this, my friends, and be advised. The primary reason why many who were called will not survive these last days is because they are within a spiritually mixed multitude. Now, we analyze the dangers of the spiritually mixed multitude in End Times 280, the times and seasons of the sealing of these set apart ones, which was posted on May 13th, 2024, and more recently in End Times 452, the spiritual disease of prejudice, part 2, which was posted on April 18th, 2025. If you have time, I encourage you to listen to both podcasts to better understand the immense danger of the spiritually mixed multitude. In doing so, you must appreciate the primary drivers of this spiritually diverse audience. And I'll give you one guess. Enter the 16 deadliest degrees of lawlessness, which you are infected with when you fail to unlock the fear of Elohim. And once again, these degrees are ignorance, deception, rejection, thoughtlessness, disregard, misconception, imprudence, insanity, error, confusion, indecision, misjudgment, denial, delusion, incompetence, and failure. Now, if you're wondering why I constantly refer to these 16 degrees, I'll tell you. It's because these 16 degrees are the primary reason why the majority within this nation have become and will become casualties to the great falling away. To wit, one of the 7 signs in the current season of sealing in which Yahuwah is casting off those who will not be saved. My dear friends, if you want to avoid their fate, hear me carefully as I say, you must stay away from the spiritually mixed multitude. Not only this, but you must seek out men and women who are walking in the fear of Elohim and wearing the girdle of truth, vis-a-vis those I am inviting to join us in the next phase of this exposition on lawlessness. Along these lines, one of my goals for phase 2 is to build an assembly of righteousness consisting of men and women who are focused on spiritual quality and possess strong spiritual values. For, as I said before, this is the key to building strong assemblies. To wit, every assembly of righteousness must have men, women, and young people who are committed to achieving the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah, line upon line and precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. We know this because he is our example. Ergo, we possess no spiritual value if we operate outside of his example. Quite the contrary, we are, in this example, thieves and robbers who are operating in lawlessness and unqualified for his kingdom. Now, you don't have to worry about thieves and robbers in this ministry because, again, Yahuwah purged them during phase 1. Trust me, it is impossible for thieves and robbers to endure sound doctrine. For sound doctrine will expose every knowledge gap we possess, after which the Ruach will force us to do something about it. And that is my mission for phase 2. By the Ruach of Elohim, I will expose many knowledge gaps within our nation. And then you, my friend, will have the opportunity to bridge each gap. To wit, you will have the opportunity to show Yahuwah that you are a man or a woman of spiritual quality and values, and you have what it takes to endure the sound doctrine of phase 2. Now, as I said before, I don't know everything, and thus I can't tell you everything there is to know, but I can tell you what you need to know to be saved in these last days. And the first thing you need to know is sure. The primary spiritual deficit dividing and thus destroying our nation is lack of knowledge. And every member of the dying nation of Israel has one thing in common, vis-a-vis, they lack spiritual quality because they lack knowledge. For none of them are wearing the girdle of truth. And so, for the last time, I'm giving you 2 weeks, 2 final weeks to ensure you are wearing the girdle of truth. For in 2 weeks, phase 2 begins. And seeing how close we are to the time of the great distress, I can pretty much guarantee you we will not be here again. What you can expect in phase 2. Now, before concluding this podcast, I want to forecast what you can expect in the next phase in this quest. First of all, and As I have said before, I will use the spirit of knowledge to expose many of the false doctrines and heresies that are destroying our nation. This is why you need the girdle of truth. For, as you learned in the most recent podcast, the girdle of truth empowers you to receive any form of knowledge in accordance with the will of Elohim. And thus, we conclude the primary reason why so many in this nation are being deceived into believing in lies and doctrines of devils is because they are not wearing the girdle of truth. Notwithstanding, unlocking the girdle of truth does not mean you will automatically see through every error and illusion destroying our nation. Quite the contrary. You, my friend, must be taught how to wield the girdle of truth like every other weapon in your spiritual arsenal. And that is something we will focus on in this phase, to wit, applying the girdle of truth to see through every deception. For every weapon has been formed to destroy your destiny at its conception, to wit, its foundation. My dear friends, you must believe me. It is very difficult to establish a firm foundation when the truth is constantly being contested and subjected to defamation. And this is another reason why the Ruach is leading me to address many of the heresies that are destroying our nation. For you will struggle to elevate your beliefs to the higher plane of knowledge without a firm foundation. For the man who is not firm in his faith will never be firm in his knowledge. Now, I will also address some of the end times events that have occurred over the past year and the signs that are pointing to the next transition in these last days, vis-a-vis the transition from the season of sealing to the season of sifting. Trust me, you don't want to miss these lessons. Last but not least, we will continue our exposition on lawlessness, but at a slower pace than before. Reason being, we will be running 3 tracks of knowledge in parallel due to the urgency of the hour we are living in. In this order, the Monday and Wednesday podcast will be a continuation of our exposition of lawlessness, and Friday's podcast will be the latest in my newest series, A Word from a Watchman. Now, although it may seem like we are slowing down a bit on our exposition of lawlessness, trust me, we are not. I am simply doing my best to create an environment and a pace that allows every true contender to experience the highest potential of success. My dear friends, you must believe me, the past year was a gift. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, phase 1 was an errand of mercy, goodwill, and love. And yet, I caution you not to expect the same for phase 2. On the rather, you should treat each podcast as if it will be the last. To wit, the last podcast prior to the final phase of the second great Exodus and the beginning of the great distress, a time of great tribulation that will claim the lives of more than 6 billion men, women, and children in the earth. And the only way you can ensure that you are guarded in those days is if you stay on the path we started. My dear friends, you have positioned yourself to contend for the seal of Elohim. And now you must get after it. Now is a time to seek. By the knowledge and the will of Elohim, you must obtain the seal of Elohim. So get ready, get ready, get ready, because phase 2 begins in 2 weeks. Now, here is the final word. The greatest spiritual policy is to devote oneself to spiritual quality. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, the model of spiritual quality is at the foundation of our election. To wit, it is the primary essence of our salvation. And the only way we can achieve spiritual quality is by achieving the qualifications upon our election, which require us to eliminate the 80 degrees of lawlessness, to wit, the greatest threats to our election. This is why I am warning you, perhaps for the last time, of the great danger of the spiritually mixed multitude. For as it is fraught with lawlessness, the spiritually mixed multitude is the most prominent vehicle of your greatest threat to inheriting everlasting life. Heretofore, I recommend stay away from the spiritually mixed multitude and prepare your heart and your mind to endure phase two. And remember, even though you have accomplished a very terrific work, until now, Yahuwah is not done working on you. Now, here is today's assignment. Go back into the archives and listen to every podcast from phase one as you are led by the set apart spirit. You'll know you are being led, for when you are done, you will be equipped with the girdle of truth and ready for phase two. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, The Key to Building Strong Assemblies. And the next podcast is entitled, How Beliefs Are Converted into Knowledge. I will post this podcast on August 22nd, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.